will continue. The 11 initiate took up most of the remaining space in the front room as they sat on the floor, knee to knee, around the sacrificial arena. The guest in the hallway peered curiously through the open door. For everyone except the Swami, this was all new and strange, and every step of the ceremony took place under his direction. When some of the boys had made a mess of trying to apply the Vaishnava tilak to their foreheads, Prabhupada had patiently guided his finger up their foreheads, making a new narrow way. So that's where we left yesterday. So we will continue. He sat before the mound of earth, looking out at his congregation. They appeared not much different from any other group of young hippies from the Lower East Side who might have assembled at any number of happenings, spiritual, cultural, musical, or whatever. Some were just checking out a new scene. Some were deeply devoted to the Swami. But everyone was curious. He had requested them to chant the Hare Krishna mantra softly throughout the ceremony. And the chanting had now become a continual drone, accompanying his mysterious movements as head priest of the Vedic rite. He began by lighting a dozen sticks of incense. Then he performed purification with water. Taking a spoon in his left hand, he put 3 drops of water from the goblet into his right hand and sipped the water. He repeated the procedure 3 times. The 4th time, he did not sip but flicked the water onto the floor behind him. He then passed the spoon and goblet around for the initiates who tried to copy what they had seen. When some of them placed the water in the wrong hand or sipped in the wrong way, Swamiji patiently corrected them. Now, he said, repeat after me. And he had then repeat one word at a time, a Vedic mantra of purification. Om apavitraha pavitrova sarva vastham gato apiva yah sumare pundare ka ksam sabhaya abhyantaraha shuchi. Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu. The initiate tried falteringly to follow his pronunciation of the words, which they had never heard before. Then he gave the translation. Unpurified or purified, or even having passed through all situations, one who remembers the Lotus Eye Supreme Personality Godhead is cleansed within and without. 3 times he repeated the sipping of water, the drone of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra filling the room as the goblet passed from initiate to initiate and back again to him. And 3 times he led the chanting of the mantra Om Apavitra. Then he raised a hand, and as the buzzing of the chanting trailed off into silence, he began his lecture. After the lecture, he asked the devotees one by one to hand him their beads, and he began chanting on them. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. The sound of everyone chanting filled the room. After finishing one strand, he would summon the owner of the beads and hold the beads up while demonstrating how to chant. Then he would announce the initiate spiritual name, and the disciple will take back the beads, bow down to the floor, and recite Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Quote, I offer my respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, who is very dear to Lord Krishna, having taken shelter at his lotus feet. Unquote. There were 11 initiates, and so 11 sets of beads, and the chanting lasted over an hour. Prabhupada gave each boy a strand of neck beads, which he said were like dog collars, identified the devotee as Krishna's dog. After Wali received his beads and his new name Umapati, he returned to his place beside Howard and said, that was wonderful. Getting your bead is wonderful. In turn, each initiate received his beads and his spiritual name. As I think Manani Mataji wrote those names, so it will get confirmed here. So Wali was the Umapati Maharaj. Howard became Hayagriva Prabhu, Haribol. Wali became Umapati. Bill became Ravindra Swarup Prabhu, Haribol. Carl became Karlapati. James became Jagannath. Mike became Mukunda. Jane became Janki. Roy became Rai Ram. And Stanley became Stradisa. Another Stanley, a Brooklyn boy with a job, and Janice, a college student from Montreal, both of whom had a rather peripheral relationship with the Swami, appeared that night and took initiation with the rest, receiving the name Satyavrata and Janardana. Haribol. Then Swamiji began the fire sacrifice by sprinkling the colored dyes across the mound of earth before him. With fixed attention, his congregation watched each mysterious move as he picked up the twigs and wooden splinters, dipped them into the clarified butter, lit them in a candle flame, and built a small fire in the center of the mound. He mixed sesame seed, barley, and clarified butter in a bowl, and then passed the mixture around. Each new disciple took a handful of the mixture to offer into the fire. He then began to recite Sanskrit prayers, asking everyone, please to repeat them. Each prayer ending with the responsive chanting of the word Swaha 3 times. And with Swaha, the initiate would toss some of the sesame barley mixture onto the fire. Swamiji kept pouring butter, piling up wood, and chanting more prayers until the mound was blazing. The prayers kept coming and the butter kept pouring, and the fire got larger and the room got hotter. After 15 or 20 minutes, he asked each of the initiates to place a banana in the fire. With 11 bananas heaped on the fire, the flames began to die and the smoke thickened. A few of the initiates got up and ran, coughing into the other room, and the guests retreated into the hallway. But Swamiji went on pouring the remaining butter and seeds into the fire. Quote, "This kind of smoke does not disturb," unquote, he said. Quote, "Other smoke disturbs, but this kind of smoke does not," unquote. Even though everyone's eyes were watering with irritation, he asked that the window remain closed. So most of the smoke was contained within the apartment and no neighbors complained. Very good. So Swamiji smiled broadly, rose from his seat before the sacrificial fire, the blazing tongue of Vishnu, and began clapping his hands and chanting Hare Krishna. Placing one foot before the other and swaying from side to side, he began to dance before the fire. His disciple joined him in dancing and chanting, and the smoke abated. He had each disciple touch his beads to the feet of Lord Chaitanya in the Panchatattva picture on the table. And finally, he allowed the windows open. As the ceremony was finished and the air in the apartment was clearing, Swamiji began to laugh. Quote, "There was so much smoke, I thought they might have to call the fire brigade," unquote. Prabhupada was happy. He arranged that prasadam be distributed to all the devotees and guests. The fire, the prayers, the vows, and everyone chanting Hare Krishna had all created an auspicious atmosphere. Things were going forward. Now there were initiated devotees in the Western world. Finally, most of the disciples went home to their apartment, leaving their spiritual master to clean up after the initiation ceremony. Haribol. How much Prabhupada sacrifice? September 10th. The morning after the initiation, Prabhupada sat in his apartment reading from a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. The large Sanskrit volume lay before him on his desk as he read. He wore horn-rimmed glasses which changed his demeanor, making him look extremely scholarly. He wore his glasses is so wonderful. I would like to show you the picture. That Prabhupada's smile is very unique. See, so wonderful. Prabhupada's smile is so powerful. He wore eyeglasses only for reading, and these added to the visual impression that he had now gone into a deep professional meditation. The room was quiet, and brilliant mid-morning sunlight shone warmly through the window. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. Quote, "Yes, come in," unquote. He looked up, removing his glasses, As Mike and Jen, now Mukunda and Janki, opened the door. Peering in, he had asked to see them. Yes, yes, come in. He smiled. They walked in and closed the door behind them. Two vivacious young Americans. From his expressive eyes, he seems to be amused. They sat down before him, and Prabhupada playfully addressed them by their new initiated names. Quote, so, you are living together, but now you have taken serious vow of initiation. So what will you do about it? Unquote. Quote, well, Mukunda seemed puzzled. Quote, isn't there any love in Krishna consciousness? Unquote. Swamiji nodded. Quote, yes. So I'm saying, why don't you get married? Unquote. They agreed it was a good idea, and Prabhupada immediately scheduled a wedding date for the 2 days later. Swamiji said he would cook a big feast and hold the marriage ceremony in his apartment. And he asked Mukunda and Janki to invite their relatives. Both Mukunda and Janki had grown up in Oregon, and their family members found it impossible to travel such a long distance on such short notice. Only Janki's sister, Joan, agreed to come. So Joan is expressing in her words some experience. Little did I know what kind of wedding it would be. All I knew was that they had met a Swami and were taking Sanskrit from him, as well as attending his small storefront temple on 2nd Avenue. When I met the Swami, he was sitting beside the window in his front room, bathed in sunlight, surrounded by pots of prasadam, which he was distributing to the devotees who were sitting around him against the wall. I was a follower of macrobiotics and not so eager for taking this noonday meal. Sorry. When I entered the room, the Swami said, quote, who is this? Unquote. And Mukunda says, quote, this is Janki's sister Joan. She has come from Oregon to attend the wedding. Unquote. Swamiji said, oh, where is Oregon? Mukunda says, it's 3,000 miles away on the other side of the United States. And he asks, oh, coming from so far? Very nice. And when will the other member of the family arrive? Then I said, I'm the only one who is coming for the wedding, Swamiji. He said, never mind. It is very nice that you have come. Please sit down and take some Krishna prasadam. So he offered me some dal, a rather moist sabji, yogurt, salad, and chapatis. But because I was a devotee of macrobiotics, all of this prasadam was very unpalatable to me. Practically speaking, it was sticking in my throat the whole time. But I remember looking over at the radiant and beautiful person who was so eager for me to take this prasadam that he had prepared. So I took it all. But in my mind, I decided this would be the last time. I would take this luncheon with the devotees. There you go. At any rate, Somehow I finished the meal, and Swamiji, who had been looking over at me, said, "You want more? You want more?" And I said, "No, thank you. I'm so full. It was very nice, but I can't take any more." Unquote. So finally, the prasadam was finished, and they were all getting up to clean. And Swamiji commented that he wanted to see Mukunda, Janki, and myself for making preparation for the wedding the next day. So when we were all three sitting in the room with him, the Swami reached over into the corner where there was a big pot with crystallized sugar syrup sticking to the outside. I thought, quote, "Oh, this is supposed to be the peace, the resistance, but I can't possibly take any more," unquote. But he reached his hand into the pot anyway and pulled up a huge round dripping gulab jamun. I said, "Oh no, I'm so full. I couldn't take any." And he said, "Oh, take, take." And he made me hold out my hand and take it. Well, by the time I finished the gulab jamun, I was fully convinced that this would be the last time I would ever come there. Haribo. Then he began explaining how in the Vedic tradition, the woman's side of the family made lavish arrangement for the wedding. And since I was the only member of the family who had come to assist, I should come the next day and help him make the wedding feast. So the next morning at 9, while Janki was decorating the room for the fire sacrifice, stringing leaves and flower garlands across the top of the room, I went upstairs to meet Swamiji. When I arrived, he immediately sent me out shopping with a list, 5 or 6 items to purchase. One of those items was not available anywhere in the markets. Although I spoke to so many shopkeepers, when I came back, he asked me, "You have obtained all the items on the list?" And I said, "Well, everything except for one." He said, "What is that?" I said, "Well, no one knows what tumor is." So he had me wash my hand and sat me down in his front room on the floor with a 5-pound bag of flour, a pound of butter, and a pitcher of water. And he looked down at me and said, "Can you make a medium soft dough?" I replied, "Do you mean a pastry or pie crust or short crust dough or paste breezy dough? What kind of pastry do you want?" "How old are you?" he said. And I said, "I'm 25, Swamiji." "You are 25, he said, and you can't make a medium soft dough? It is a custom in India that any young girl from the age of 5 years is very experienced in making this dough. But never mind, I will show you." So he very nicely emptied the bag of flour and with his fingertips cut in the butter until the mixture had a consistency of coarse milk. Then he made a well in the center of the flour, poured in just the right amount of water, and very deftly and expertly kneaded it into a velvety smooth medium soft dough. He then brought in a tray of cooked potatoes, mashed them with the fingertips, and began to sprinkle in spices. He showed me how to make and form potato kachoris, which are fried Indian pastries with spiced potato filling. From 11 until 5 that afternoon, I sat in this one room making potato kachoris. Meanwhile, in the course of the same afternoon, Swamiji brought in 15 other special vegetarian dishes, each one in a large enough quantity for 40 persons. And he had made them single-handedly in his small, narrow kitchen. It was rather hot that afternoon, and I was perspiring. I asked Swamiji, may I please have a glass of water? He peeked his head around the door and said, go wash your hands. I immediately did so, and when I returned, Swamiji had a glass of water for me. He explained to me that while preparing this food for offering to the Supreme Lord, one should not think of eating or drinking anything. So after drinking the glass of water, I went in and washed my hands and sat down. About 2 in the afternoon, I said, Swamiji, may I have a cigarette? And he picked his head around the corner and said, go wash your hands. So I did. And when I came back, he explained to me the 4 rules of Krishna consciousness. I continued to make the kachoris, and around 3:30, 4 o'clock, it was extremely warm in the room. And as Swamiji was bringing in one of his preparation, I was wiping my arm and hand across my forehead. He looked down at me and said, please go and wash your hands. Again, I did so. And upon returning, he had a moistened paper towel for me. He explained that cooking for Krishna requires certain standard of cleanliness and purity that were different than the ones I was accustomed to. About 30 people attended. The decorations were similar to the ones for the initiation a few days before, except that they were more festive and the feast was more lavish. Swamiji's from room was decorated with pine bough. Leaves and flowers were strung overhead from one side of the room to the other. Some of the new initiates came, the large red beads around their necks. They had taken vow now, 16 rounds a day, and they chanted on the beads, just as Swamiji had shown them. And they happily, though self-consciously, called one another by their new spiritual names. Janki. Swamiji said that I should wear a sari at my wedding, and he said it should be made of silk. I asked him what color, and he said red. So Mukunda bought me an absolutely elegant sari and some very nice jewelry. The Swami's friends were used to seeing Janki as she always came with Mukunda, but usually she wore no makeup and dressed in very plain clothes. They were astounded and somewhat impressed to see her enter wearing jewelry, makeup, and a bright red sari. The bride's hair was up and braided, decorated with an oval silver filigree hair ornaments. She wore heavy silver earring, which Mukunda had purchased from an expensive Indian import shop on Fifth Avenue, and silver bracelet. Prabhupada directed Mukunda and Janki to sit opposite him on the other side of the sacrificial fire area. And just as at the initiation, he lit the incense and instructed them in the purification by water, recited the purification mantra, and then began to speak. He explained about the relationship between man and wife in Krishna consciousness and how they should serve each other and how they should serve Krishna. Prabhupada then asked Janki's sister to present her formally to Mukunda as his wife. Mukunda then repeated after Swamiji, I accept Janki as my wife, and I shall take charge of her throughout both of our lives. We shall live together peacefully in Krishna consciousness, and there will never be any separation. Hari Bol. It's terrible to see so many devotees take divorce. And then Prabhupada turned to Janki. Will you accept Sriman Mukunda Das Brahmachari as your life's companion? Will you serve him always and help him to execute his Krishna consciousness activities? And then Janki replied, yes, I accept Mukunda as my husband throughout my life. There shall never be any separation between us, either in happiness or distress. I shall serve him always, and we shall live together peacefully in Krishna consciousness. Hari Bol. I think the time has come that we should end our session. 6:44, 54.
Prabhu, you are on mute, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, you're muted. We can't hear you.
When I get muted, I don't know, Prabhuji. Did you hear Vanchakalpa or no?
No, Prabhuji.
Oh, okay. So devotee may before they leave, we would like to offer our humble obeisances at the desk of the lotus feet of these wonderful Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. Vanchakalpatarubhasya kripa sindhu bhayavacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. If any other question, comment, correction, chastisement, if not, then we will end the session. And remain. Yes, Arvind Prabhu.
Just a small request, Prabhuji. Is it okay to? I was having a chat with Samant Prabhu. Can we play any Telugu songs, in this one? I mean, which doesn't have the lyrics. Basically, I know you mentioned that there should be English lyrics to it. Some of the songs which I selected doesn't have that in English lyrics. So I wanted to ask you if that is okay.
Well, we have to see, is it authorized song first of all?
Yes, it is. Actually, it is all Krishna song. It is all Krishna
No,
song.
it's Krishna.